Let me tell you something honestly. Stop scrolling for a second, because what I'm about to say might change the way you look at greatness forever. We live in a world where people chase fame, money, power, followers. But what if I told you the most influential man in history had none of that in the beginning? No palace, no army, no wealth. Just truth in his heart and character so powerful that even his enemies called him trustworthy. And his name was Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Now listen close, because his story isn't just history. It's a lesson for every human being alive today. He was born an orphan in the desert city of Mecca. No privilege, no protection. Yet the people around him gave him a name before he even became a prophet. They called him Al-Amin, the Trustworthy. Think about that. In a society full of tribal conflict and dishonesty, one man stood out because he never lied, never cheated, never broke a promise. And then at the age of 40, his life changed forever. He received a message from God. A message that shook the world. A message that said, worship one God, stand for justice, care for the poor, protect the weak, speak the truth even when it's hard. But let me tell you something, truth has enemies. And the moment he started sharing that message, people mocked him, they attacked him. They boycotted him, they tried to destroy him, yet he responded with something the world rarely sees: patience, mercy, forgiveness. Years later, when he returned to Mecca with victory, the same people who once hurt him stood in front of him, afraid of revenge. And you know what he said. He didn't say punish them. He didn't say imprison them. He said, go, you are free. That's mercy. That's leadership. It's character. And that's why today billions of people love and follow him. Not because of force, not because of power, but because his life proves something powerful. Real greatness is not how many people you control. Real greatness is how many hearts you inspire. And the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, continues to inspire hearts across the world, even today. Long before the world knew him as a prophet, long before millions of people followed his message, there was a man in the city of Mecca whose character quietly set him apart from everyone around him. His name was Muhammad, peace be upon him. At that time, he was not known for power, wealth, or status. He was known for something far greater. The people around him called him Al-Amin, which means that the trustworthy one. This title was not given to him by his friends only. It was given by the entire community, even by people who would later disagree with his message. In a society where honesty was not always common and tribal conflicts were frequent, trust was a rare and valuable quality. Yet Muhammad earned that trust from everyone who knew him. He was born in Mecca in a time when life was not easy. He lost his father before he was even born, and his mother passed away when he was still a young child. Growing up as an orphan, many did not have the protection or advantages that many others had. But instead of becoming bitter or dishonest because of hardship, he grew into someone who valued truth and integrity more than anything. As a young man, Muhammad worked hard to support himself. He helped his family, cared for his relatives, and earned a living through honest work. One of the ways he supported himself was by working as a trader. In those days, trade was a very important part of life in Mecca. Merchants traveled long distances with goods, buying and selling items in different markets. Trade requires trust. When someone is handling money, goods, and business deals, honesty becomes very important. A dishonest trader might cheat customers, lie about products, or break agreements. But Muhammad never did any of these things. He was always truthful in his dealing. If something was wrong with the goods he was selling, he would say it openly. If he made a promise, he kept it. Because of this, people began to notice something different about him. When others argued over money or business, Muhammad stayed fair and calm. When someone trusted him with their belongings, he protected them carefully. When he spoke, people believed his words because they knew he never lied. Over time, the people of Mecca began to call him Al-Amin. It was not a title he asked for. It was a name the community gave him because they saw his honesty again and again. People trusted him with their valuables. Sometimes travelers or neighbors would leave their belongings with him for safekeeping. They knew he would guard them carefully. and returned them exactly as they were given. In a world where theft and dishonesty could happen easily, this level of trust was something very special. His character also showed in the way he treated people. He was respectful to the elderly and kind to the young. He helped the poor and showed compassion to those who were struggling. He did not insult others or look down on people. Instead, he treated everyone with dignity and fairness. Another example of his strong character happened when the people of Makkah were rebuilding the Kaaba, the sacred house of worship in their city. During the construction, the tribes began to argue about who would have the honor of placing the special black stone back into its place. The disagreement became so serious that it almost turned into a fight between the tribes. The leaders decided that the next person who entered the area would help solve the problem. When Muhammad walked in, they immediately felt relief and said, "Here comes Al-Amin." They trusted him so much that they believed he would give a fair solution. Muhammad suggested that the stone be placed on a cloth. Then he asked the leader of each tribe to hold a corner of the cloth. Together they lifted the stone to its place, and Muhammad gently placed it where it belonged. This wise solution prevented conflict and kept peace between the tribes. This moment showed how much the people trusted his judgment and fairness. Even before he became a prophet, they believed he would never act in a selfish or dishonest way. Years later, when Muhammad received the message of prophethood and began calling people to worship one God, some of those same people rejected his message. But even many of them still admitted that he had always been truthful. They could not deny the honesty they had seen in him for decades. In fact, even those who opposed him often continued to trust him with their belongings. This shows how deeply rooted his reputation for honesty was. His character was so strong that it remained clear even when people disagreed with his teachings. What makes this story powerful is that Muhammad did not build his influence through power or wealth first. He built it through character. Before leadership, before followers, before recognition, there was honesty, kindness, patience, and trust. His life reminds us of something very important. True respect is not created by fame or authority. It grows from the way a person lives every day. When someone is truthful, fair, and trustworthy, people naturally begin to respect and trust them. Muhammad's title, Al-Amin, was not just a name. It was a reflection of how he lived his life. Every action, every word, and every promise showed the same strong character. That is why when the message of Islam began to spread, people did not see him as a stranger bringing new ideas. They saw the same honest man they had known for years. The same man who never lied, never cheated, and never betrayed trust. His example teaches us that real greatness begins with character. Before someone leads others, they must first learn to be honest, patient, and trustworthy. Character is the foundation of everything else. The story of Muhammad being known as Al-Amin reminds the world that true leadership is built on integrity. When a person lives with honesty and kindness, their reputation speaks for them long before their words do. And that is exactly what happened with Prophet Muhammad. Peace be upon him. Long before he became known as a prophet, he was already known as something powerful and rare. A man people could trust with their wealth, their problems, and their peace. A man whose character spoke louder than any title. A man they simply called Al-Amin. There was a time in history when a child was born into a world that did not seem to promise him anything great. He was born in the city of Mecca, in the Arabian Peninsula, more than 1,400 years ago. At that time, society was very different from what we know today. Tribal power, wealth, and family status meant everything. If you were born into a strong family with wealth and influence, your life had protection and opportunity. But if you were born without those advantages, life could be extremely difficult. This child entered the world without the privileges many people depended on. Even before he was born, he faced hardship. His father had already passed away, which meant he came into this world as an orphan. In those days, losing a father was not only emotionally painful, but also socially dangerous. Fathers were the protectors and providers of the family. Without a father, a child often had fewer opportunities and less protection. As he grew older, life continued to test him. When he was only a young boy, his mother also passed away. Imagine the feeling of losing both parents at such an early stage in life. Many children might feel lost, broken, or hopeless after such tragedies. But even in these difficult moments, something special was developing inside him. His character, patience, and strength were quietly being shaped by the hardships he faced. After the death of his mother, he was cared for by his grandfather, loved him deeply, and tried to give him comfort and stability. However, this period of peace did not last long. When the boy was still very young, his grandfather also passed away. Once again, life placed another heavy challenge in front of him. At this point, his uncle took responsibility for raising him. His uncle was not a wealthy man, but he was kind and protective. Because the family did not have much money, the young boy learned the value of hard work very early. Instead of living a life of comfort, he helped with simple jobs and responsibilities. One of the tasks he took on as a child was caring for sheep in the desert. Spending time alone in the quiet desert gave him time to think, reflect, and grow. These early experiences taught him important lessons about patience, humility, and responsibility. Hardship did not make him bitter. Instead, it made him stronger and more thoughtful. He grew into a young man who was known for something rare and valuable: honesty and trustworthiness. People in Makkah began to notice his character. In a society where dishonesty and selfishness were common, he stood out in a remarkable way. He was known for speaking the truth, keeping promises, and treating others with fairness. Because of this, the people gave him a special title. They called him Al-Amin, which means the trustworthy. This was not a title he gave himself. It was given to him by the people who observed his character and respected him deeply. As he became an adult, his reputation continued to grow. People trusted him with their business, their belongings, and their important matters. Even those who later disagreed with him could not deny that he had always been honest and fair. His life showed that true respect does not come from wealth or power, but from strong character. Years passed, and at the age of 40, his life reached a moment that would change history forever. During this time, he often spent moments alone in quiet reflection. He would go to a cave outside the city to think about the problems in society and the condition of people around him. Many people in his society were involved in injustice, idol worship, and harmful traditions. He felt deeply concerned about the direction humanity was going. Then one day, while he was in the cave, he received a message that would transform not only his life, but the lives of millions and eventually billions of people around the world. He was chosen by God to deliver a message to humanity. The message was simple but powerful. It called people to worship one God, to live with honesty, to help the poor, to treat others with justice, and to build a society based on compassion and responsibility. However, sharing this message was not easy. When he began to teach people about it, many of the powerful leaders in Mecca opposed him. They felt threatened by the idea of change. They mocked him, rejected him, and tried to stop his message. Some people even tried to harm him and those who followed him. Despite all these difficulties, he did not give up. He remained patient and continued to guide people with wisdom and kindness. Even when he faced hostility, he responded with calmness and dignity. He did not seek revenge or personal gain. Instead, he remained focused on delivering the message and helping people understand the truth. Over time, more and more people began to recognize the sincerity of his mission. They saw that his life matched his words. He practiced the values he taught. He helped the poor, cared for orphans, and encouraged fairness in business and daily life. His teachings slowly began to transform the hearts of those around him. Eventually, the message spread beyond the city of Makkah and reached many different regions. Communities began to change. People who once fought each other began to live as brother. Those who were once neglected and oppressed found dignity and protection. One of the most remarkable moments in his life came when he returned to Mecca after many years of struggle. At one time, the people of that city had rejected him and forced him to leave. Now he returned with strength and support. In many cases throughout history, Leaders in such situations choose revenge. They punish their enemies and show their power, but he chose something different. Instead of revenge, he offered forgiveness. He showed mercy to those who once opposed him. This act of compassion demonstrated the true strength of his character and the values he had been teaching all along. His life story is one of the most powerful examples in human history of how greatness can emerge from the most humble beginning. He started life as an orphan without wealth or privilege. Yet through patience, honesty, faith, and dedication to truth, he became one of the most influential figures the world has ever known. Today, more than 1 billion people across the globe follow his teachings and look to his life as an example of how to live with purpose, kindness, and integrity. His story reminds us that circumstances at birth do not determine the impact a person can have on the world. What truly matters is character, perseverance, and a commitment to what is right. From an orphan child in the desert to a leader who changed the course of history, his journey continues to inspire people to believe that even the most difficult beginnings can lead to extraordinary outcomes. When people talk about justice and compassion today, they often speak about laws, systems, and policy. But long before modern systems existed, the life and teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, showed the world what true justice and compassion look like in action. His message was not just words that people heard, it was a way of life that he practiced every day. Through his behavior, his decision, and the way he treated people, he taught that a strong society is built when people care for one another, speak the truth, and live with fairness and sincerity before God. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, lived in a time when many people in society were ignored or treated badly. The poor were often forgotten. Orphans had little protection. Women had very few rights. The powerful tribes controlled wealth and influence while the weak struggled to survive. In such an environment, the message he brought was revolutionary. He reminded people that every human being has dignity and value, no matter their wealth, tribe, or status. He taught that the true measure of a person is not how rich they are or how powerful they appear, but how honest they are, how kind they are, and how they treat those who cannot give them anything in return. One of the most important lessons he taught was the importance of caring for the poor and those in need. He constantly reminded people that wealth is not just a personal blessing, but also a responsibility. Those who have more should help those who have less. He encouraged people to feed the hungry, help the needy, and support the vulnerable. For him, helping others was not something optional or occasional. It was a central part of faith. A person could not claim to love God while ignoring people who were suffering around them. There are many examples from his life that show how deeply he cared about others. If someone came to him asking for help, he tried his best to assist them. If he did not have anything to give, he would still speak kindly and respectfully. He understood that sometimes a gentle word and a kind attitude can be just as valuable as money. His compassion made people feel respected and valued, even when they were struggling. He also spoke strongly about honesty. In a world where deception and unfair trade were common, he reminded people that truthfulness is the foundation of trust. Long before he received his message, people already knew him as someone who could be trusted. He never cheated anyone in business. He never lied to gain advantage. Because of this reputation, people felt safe leaving their belongings with him. Even some of those who later opposed his message still trusted his honesty. This emphasis on honesty was not just about personal character, it was about building a healthy society. When people are honest with one another, trust grows. When trust grows, communities become stronger. Businesses become fairer. Families become more stable. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that truthfulness brings peace to the heart and strengthens relationships between people. Fairness was another important part of his message. He believed that justice should apply to everyone, whether they were rich or poor, powerful or weak. In many societies, people with influence can escape consequences, while ordinary people face harsh punishment. But he made it clear that justice must be equal for all. No one should receive special treatment because of their status. There is a well-known moment from his life when a person from a respected family committed a wrongdoing, and some people tried to ask for leniency because of that person's status. But Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, rejected this idea firmly. He explained that justice must remain the same for everyone. If laws only apply to the weak while the powerful are protected, then society will fall into corruption and inequality. His stance showed that true leadership means standing for what is right, even when it is uncomfortable or unpopular. Another beautiful aspect of his teachings was the way he connected compassion with everyday behavior. He encouraged people to greet one another warmly, to smile, to forgive mistakes, and to avoid harshness. He reminded people that kindness is not limited to big actions, it also appears in small daily choices. Helping someone carry a burden, offering food to a guest, or speaking gently to someone who is upset can all be acts of compassion. His compassion was not limited only to friends or followers. He showed kindness even to those who disagree with him. Many times he responded to hostility with patience rather than anger. Instead of seeking revenge, he often chose forgiveness. This approach surprised many people because it showed strength of character and deep understanding of human nature. By choosing mercy when he had the power to punish, he taught people that compassion can transform hearts and relationships. At the center of all these teachings was devotion to God. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, constantly reminded people that life has a purpose beyond material success. Wealth, status, and power are temporary, but the way we treat others and the sincerity of our actions before God have lasting value. He taught that faith should inspire people to become better human beings, more honest, more generous, more patient, and more compassionate. His devotion was not limited to personal prayer or worship. It influenced every part of his life. He showed gratitude during times of comfort and patience during times of hardship. He encouraged people to remember God not only in moments of difficulty, but also in moments of happiness and success. This balance created a sense of humility and responsibility, reminding people that their blessings should be used to benefit others. The beauty of his message is that it speaks to people of every time and place. Caring for the poor, being honest, treating people fairly, and living with sincerity before God are values that every society needs. These principles help create communities where people feel safe, respected, and supported. Even today, many people around the world look to his life as an example of how to live with dignity and purpose. His teachings remind us that compassion is not weakness, honesty is not outdated, and justice is not optional. They are the foundation of a better world. When people truly understand this message, they begin to see that the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, were not just meant for one group of people or one period in history. They were meant to guide humanity toward a life built on kindness, fairness, and sincere devotion. And in a world that often feels divided and uncertain, those values remain just as powerful and necessary as they were centuries ago. History shows that the lives of great people are not always filled with comfort and ease. Often their paths are full of trials and painful moments that test their character. The life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is one of the clearest examples of this truth. From the beginning of his mission, he faced rejection, insults, and cruelty. Yet through every hardship, he responded with patience, calmness, and dignity, instead of anger or revenge. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, began sharing the message of believing in one God and living a life of justice and kindness, many people in Mecca strongly opposed him. The leaders of the society feared that his message would challenge their power and traditions. Instead of listening to him with open hearts, they chose to mock him and spread lies about him. Some people called him a magician, others called him a poet, and some tried to convince others that he was not telling the truth. These words were painful, but the prophet did not respond with harshness. He did not shout back at them or insult them. Instead, he remained calm and continued to speak with wisdom and kindness. He He believed that truth would eventually reach the hearts of people, even if it took time. The opposition did not stop with words. Many of his followers were poor and weak, and they became targets of terrible persecution. Some were beaten in the hot desert sun, some were imprisoned, some were tortured simply because they believed in the message of one God. The prophet felt deep sadness for their suffering, yet he continued to encourage them to stay strong and patient. He reminded them that God sees every struggle and that justice would come in time. The prophet himself also faced many personal attacks. People would throw dirt on him while he walked through the street. Some would place thorns in his path so that his feet would be injured. On one occasion, while he was praying peacefully, a group of people placed a heavy burden on his back just to humiliate him. Even in those moments, he did not react with rage. Instead, he remained patient and continued to pray. One of the most painful periods in his life was when the people of Makkah decided to boycott him and his entire clan. For nearly 3 years, they were cut off from trade, food, and social contact. Families struggled to find enough food to survive. Children cried from hunger. It was a time of great hardship and suffering. Yet, even during those dark days, the prophet did not call for revenge. He remained patient and trusted that God would open a way forward. Soon after that difficult period, he experienced another deep loss. His beloved wife, Khadijah, may God be pleased with her, who had always supported him and believed in him, passed away. Not long after, his uncle Abu Talib, who had protected him from many enemies, also passed away. These losses brought great sadness to his heart. It was a year filled with grief. Despite this pain, he did not lose hope or turn bitter. Instead, he continued his mission with patience and faith. In search of people who might listen to the message of truth, the prophet traveled to a nearby city called Tyre. He hoped that the people there would show kindness and understanding, but the response he received was extremely cruel. The leaders of the city rejected him and encouraged the children and crowds to chase him out of the town. People threw stones at him as he walked away, causing his feet to bleed. The pain was both physical and emotional. Even in that moment, when he was wounded and alone, he did not ask for punishment against him. Instead, he prayed to God with humility and patience. When an angel offered to destroy the town for the cruelty they had shown, the prophet refused. He said that perhaps one day their children of future generations would believe in the truth. This response showed the depth of his mercy and patience. Years later, after many struggles, the prophet and his followers returned to Makkah with strength and support. The people who had once mocked him, attacked him, and forced him out of his home were now standing before him. Many were afraid, expecting that he might seek revenge after all the suffering they had caused. But the prophet surprised everyone. Instead of punishment, he offered forgiveness. He told them that they were free and that no harm would come to them. This moment showed the true power of patience and mercy. It proved that his mission was never about revenge or personal gain. It was always about guiding people toward goodness, justice, and faith. His patience through hardship teaches an important lesson for all people today. Life will always bring challenges, unfair situations, and moments of pain. People may insult us, treat us unfairly. In those moments, it is easy to react with anger or revenge. But the example of the prophet shows a different path. Patience does not mean weakness. It means having the strength to control anger, to stay calm in difficult situations, and to respond with wisdom instead of hate. It means believing that goodness and truth are stronger than cruelty. The life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, reminds us that real strength is found in character. Even when surrounded by hardship, he remained honest, kind, and hopeful. His patience helped transform hearts and build a community based on faith, justice, and compassion. Because of this powerful example, billions of people around the world continue to admire and follow his teachings. His story shows that patience in the face of hardship can create lasting change and inspire generations to live with courage, mercy, and faith. There is a moment in history that shows the true power of mercy. A moment that teaches the world what real strength looks like. It happened when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, returned to the city of Makkah after many years of pain, rejection, and struggle. This was the city where he was born, where he grew up, and where he first began to share the message of believing in one God. But it was also the city where many people turned against him. When Prophet Muhammad began telling people about the message of God, many of the powerful leaders of Makkah became angry. They did not like the idea of change. They did not like hearing that all people are equal and that the poor and weak deserve justice. They felt their power and traditions were being challenged. Because of this, they started to insult him and mock him. They called him names and spread lies about him. Some people even threw dirt and stones at him while he walked through the streets. The attacks did not stop there. The followers of the Prophet were also treated badly. Some were beaten, some were tortured, and some were forced to leave their homes. Life became very difficult for anyone who believed in the message he brought. For years, Prophet Muhammad and his companions suffered in silence, holding on to patience and faith. Eventually, the situation became so dangerous that the Prophet and his followers had to leave Makkah. They migrated to the city of Medina. Leaving Makkah was not easy. It was their home. Their families were there, their memories were there, and many of them had to leave their possessions behind. But they left because they wanted peace and the freedom to worship God without fear. Even after the Prophet and his followers moved to Medina, the leaders of Makkah did not leave them alone. There were battles, threats, and many attempts to destroy the growing community of believers. The Prophet and his companions had every reason to feel anger and pain toward the people who had hurt them so deeply. Years passed and the message of Islam continued to spread. More and more people began to believe in the teachings of justice, mercy, and faith in one God. The community became stronger and more united. Eventually, the Prophet returned to Makkah with a large group of followers. By this time, it was clear that the balance of power had changed. The people of Makkah were afraid. They remembered everything they had done to him and his followers. They knew they had mocked him, harmed his companions, and forced him to leave his own city. Now the man they once rejected was returning with thousands of supporters. Many people expected revenge. In those times, revenge was common. If someone had been wronged, it was normal to respond with punishment and anger. The leaders and residents of Makkah waited nervous, wondering what would happen next. They feared that the city would face destruction or that they would be punished for their past actions. But something remarkable happened. Prophet Muhammad entered the city with humility. He did not enter with pride or arrogance. Instead of celebrating power, he lowered his head in gratitude to God. His focus was not on showing strength over others, but on showing faith and mercy. The people gathered, unsure of what he would say. They stood before him, many of them feeling guilty and afraid. They knew they had treated him unfairly. They knew they had caused years of suffering. Then he spoke words that changed the meaning of victory forever. He asked them what they thought he would do to them. They replied that they expected kindness because he had always been known as a noble and generous person. They remembered his good character even though they had once rejected him. Instead of punishment, the Prophet made a decision that shocked everyone. He forgave them. He told them that there would be no blame upon them and that they were free. Imagine that moment. People who once insulted him, people who tried to harm him, people who forced him out of his own home were now standing in front of him expecting revenge. But instead of anger, they received mercy. This was not a small act of forgiveness. It was a powerful example of leadership and humanity. Anyone can show kindness to friends, but it takes a truly strong heart to forgive those who have caused deep pain. The Prophet understood something very important about human nature. Revenge might satisfy anger for a moment, but mercy can transform hearts. By choosing forgiveness, he opened the door for healing and change. Many people in Makkah were deeply moved by this act. They saw that his message was not about power or control. It was about compassion, justice, and guiding people toward a better way of living. His mercy showed them the true meaning of the teachings he had been sharing for years. This moment also proved that real strength does not come from domination or punishment. Real strength comes from self-control and the ability to rise above anger. When someone has the power to punish but chooses forgiveness instead, that is a powerful sign of character. The prophet's decision created peace in a situation that could have easily turned into violence. Instead of dividing people further, his mercy brought them together. Families that once stood on opposite sides began to live side by side again. The city that once rejected him became a place where his message was respected and followed. Even today, centuries later, this moment continues to inspire people around the world. It reminds us that forgiveness is not weakness. It is one of the greatest forms of strength a person can show. When people choose mercy over revenge, they create opportunities for understanding, healing, and unity. The story of the prophet's return to Mecca teaches us that leadership is not about pride or control. It is about guiding people with wisdom and compassion. It shows that a single act of mercy can change the direction of history. In a world where anger and conflict often seem loud and powerful, this moment stands as a quiet but unforgettable lesson. It reminds us that even after years of hardship and injustice, forgiveness can still win, and that is the true power of mercy. There are some lives in history that people remember for a short time and then they slowly fade away. But there are also rare lives that continue to guide humanity century after century. The life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is one of those extraordinary lives. More than 1,400 years have passed since he lived. Yet billions of people around the world still look to his life for guidance, inspiration, and hope. His example continues to teach people how to live with dignity, kindness, patience, and faith. What makes his life so powerful is that he did not teach these values only with words. He lived them every single day. People around him saw honesty in his actions, compassion in his behavior, and humility in his character. Even before he became a prophet, people trusted him deeply. They knew he would never lie, never cheat, and never betray anyone's trust. Because of this, they gave him the name Al-Amin, which means the trustworthy one. This shows that his character was already strong long before his mission began. His life also teaches a powerful lesson about humility. Even when he became a leader and people respected him greatly, he never behaved like a king or someone who wanted special treatment. He lived simply. He helped with household work. He treated everyone around him with kindness and respect. He sat with the poor, spoke gently with children, and welcomed strangers with warmth. People who met him did not feel fear in his presence. They felt comfort and peace. This kind of humility is rare, especially for someone who had such a great influence over millions of people. Another beautiful part of his life is the way he treated others with compassion. He cared deeply about people who were suffering, especially the poor, the weak, and the forgotten. He encouraged people to help their neighbors, to feed the hungry, and to take care of those who had no one to support them. He reminded people that kindness is not a small thing. A simple smile, a gentle word, or a helping hand could change someone's day and even someone's life. His compassion was not limited only to thousands of followers. He showed mercy even to those who were against him. Throughout his life, he faced many hardships. Some people mocked him, rejected his message, and tried to harm him. Yet he did not respond with hatred. Instead, he showed patience and forgiveness. He continued to pray for those people and hoped that one day they would understand the truth. One of the most powerful moments that shows his mercy happened when he returned to the city of Mecca after many years. In the past, the people of that city had treated him harshly. They had forced him and his followers to leave their homes. They had insulted him and tried to stop his message. When he finally returned with strength and victory, many people expected that he would take revenge. They thought he would punish those who had hurt him. But instead, he chose forgiveness. He told them that they were free and that no punishment would be given. This act of mercy surprised many people and touched their hearts deeply. His leadership was also very special because it was based on justice and care for people. He believed that a true leader must serve others, not control them. He listened to people's concerns and treated everyone fairly, whether they were rich or poor, powerful or weak. He encouraged consultation and valued the opinions of others. This approach created a community built on trust, respect, and cooperation. Another important part of his life was his strong faith in God. Through every challenge and difficulty, he remained patient and hopeful. He believed that God sees everything and that goodness will always have value, even when the path is difficult. This faith gave him strength during times of hardship and allowed him to continue his mission with courage. His message encouraged people to improve themselves. He taught that true success is not measured by wealth or power, but by good character and sincere faith. He reminded people that honesty, patience, forgiveness, and kindness are the qualities that truly make a person great. These lessons are still meaningful today because the world continues to struggle with injustice, conflict, and selfishness. For millions of people, his life is a guide for everyday living. When people face difficulties, they remember his patience. When they are tempted to respond with anger, they remember his forgiveness. When they see someone in need, they remember his compassion and generosity. His example encourages people to choose kindness over cruelty and understanding over hatred. Even people who study history and leadership often recognize the extraordinary impact of his life. From a simple beginning in the desert, he helped transform society by promoting justice, equality, and moral responsibility. His message encouraged people to abandon harmful traditions and to build a community based on respect, honesty, and faith in one God. What makes his example truly timeless is that it speaks to the heart of every human being. No matter where someone lives, no matter what language they speak, the values he practiced are universal. Everyone understands the importance of honesty, mercy, fairness, and humility. These qualities connect people across cultures and generations. Today, billions of people continue to love and respect Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, not only as a messenger of God, but also as a model of how a human being should live. His life reminds us that real greatness is not about power or fame. Real greatness is about how we treat others, how we remain patient during difficulties, and how we stay committed to truth and goodness. In a world that often feels divided and uncertain, his life continues to offer guidance and hope. It reminds humanity that kindness is stronger than cruelty. Forgiveness is more powerful than revenge. And faith can give strength even in the hardest moments. Because of this, his example will continue to inspire hearts and guide people for generations to come. And when you truly look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, you begin to understand something very powerful. Greatness is not about how much wealth you collect. It is not about how famous you become, and it is not about how many people fear you. Real greatness is about how much good you bring into the lives of others. He showed the world that kindness can defeat hatred, patience can overcome hardship, and forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds. His life reminds us that every human being has the ability to become better, to speak the truth, to help those in need, to treat others with respect, and to live with humility and faith. That is why even after more than 14 centuries, his story continues to touch hearts across the world. Because the message he lived was simple, powerful, and timeless. Be honest, be compassionate, stand for justice, and never forget your connection with God. If more people in the world followed even a small part of that example, imagine how different our world could be. And that is why the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, will always remain a light for humanity, guiding hearts, inspiring minds, and reminding us all what true character really looks like.